Right now, I feel like I have all the friends and support that I need in life, but it was not always the case. This has been a journey of discovery, of research, of learning how to pretty much make friends on command. And if I had to start over from scratch, these are the 3 main steps that I would do, plus some added main tips, and I want to share with you so that you can learn them as well. So if I was starting over, the first thing I would do is to join a group, because there are tons and tons of ways to make friends, but by far the one that I found that is the most easy to make friends and also the most repeatable in terms of the success is to join a group, some sort of group where you can express your hobbies or your interests. So when I moved from Trinidad and Tobago to Canada to study, I knew absolutely nobody, but I would join groups. I would join volunteer groups. I joined a dance class in the city. I joined football groups and matches. And very, very quickly, I ended up meeting a lot of interesting people, but I actually became one of the more popular, if you want to call it that, and recognized people on campus. There wasn't a day where I would walk from one end of the campus to the other and not get a lot of people being like, hey, Isaiah, hey, how you doing? How you doing, right? What I've seen a lot of success from with these groups is to make sure it is one that is in a thing that you want to learn about, that it is interactive, meaning you have a level of you are actually doing or making something. And then the third is that it still has the ability to have conversation. Running clubs are a good example. Yoga, rock climbing, even outside of physical stuff. It could be you're trying to get better at public speaking. So you go to an event like Toastmasters, which is an organization that runs those sorts of workshops. Improv classes, painting, pottery. These sorts of things, again, as long as it's an authentic desire or authentic goal of yours, are going to just be fun for you, and you're going to find some really interesting people that you can then try to turn into your friends. And the way to find it, life is so easy now. All we need to do is search on Google Maps, search on Facebook events or meetup.com. Those will be the 4 things that I check, and you'll be able to find tons of those activities near you. So now the second thing, once you've picked your group, once you know the thing you want to try to learn or do, is to actually go out and meet people. Now, just off the top, this is scary. This is one of the things that I had such a big stumbling block that I had to go over. A lot of people are going to have this because it is scary to go out of your comfort zone, out of your house, and try to meet people, try to make them like you. I wanted to share a few things that helped me overcome those feelings. I still get them from time to time, but they're way, way smaller and way less intense than they used to be. The first is that more often than not, people are more open and welcoming than you might think. You might have this idea in your head that, oh, they're not gonna like me, or they're not gonna be receptive to me. But the very fact that they're in a group, that they've left their space to be in a group, means at the very least, they're going to be open to interacting with other people. Take a run club, for example. If all they wanted to do was run and not talk to people, they would have just run on their own. You know what I mean? Same for every other of those sorts of hobbies that you could join. The second thing that you need to understand is very likely people are also looking to make friends, and that might be even the reason they joined that group in the first place. So you might very much be in the same boat as they are, and you might find a lot of nice connection as a result. People want to meet you, and once you start realizing that and you start thinking about it, that is going to help you overcome that feeling of fear a lot better. And then the last thing that really helped for me, and this is like personal encouragement. So I would use what I call the 3-2-1 rule. And what that is as soon as you see a person, as soon as you get the urge that you want to interact with them, that you think they're interesting, you just count down 3, 2, 1, and you go up and talk to them. This is something that took me way too long to learn, but it is something that is super, super helpful, because what I used to do, what I used to get is this period, this phase of just overthinking. Oh, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? How am I going to walk over there? How am I going to appear? And then the moment would pass. The person would leave the room, or, they'd start talking to somebody else, and now I've lost my chance. I don't want you to lose those chances. So try your best. As soon as you see that person, count down 3, 2, 1, and just go up and talk to them. And just as a side note, I think that is one of the biggest level ups that you could probably get for your life. That ability to be intimidated, to be scared, but to take the courage and just say, you know what? I'm counting down from 3 and I'm going to say hi to that person. I'm going to network with that potential business partner. I'm going to go talk to that crush of mine. I'm going to confess my love to that person, whatever it might be. That has been huge for me in my life just overall, and I hope it helps you as well. So now that you've worked up the courage to be in the space, to go up to a person, what do you even say, right? What's the next step? So I'm going to break this into 2 little parts. The first is starting the conversation, and then the second is what you do after that. So starting the conversation, there's tons and tons of ways to start a conversation, and I would love to go into a whole video about that. So if you're interested in that, leave a comment. 2 that I'm going to recommend for you, especially if you're a beginner, are these. The first is observation plus your thoughts plus a question. So what this could look like is, let's say there's a lot of people in the area, in the hobby that you went to, and you want to talk to a person next to you. You could say, hey, there's so many people here. That kind of makes me feel a bit nervous. What about you? So you observed so many people here. You said what that makes you feel. So it makes me feel nervous. And the third thing is you ask their opinion. You're kind of using the things that both of you and the other person, are seeing in the world to then break the ice of the conversation. So the second one, and the next conversation starter I really like, is observation plus positive assumption. Let's say, for example, you were at football and you saw this guy or girl putting on like really high-tech gear. They have all the shin pads, they have the socks, they have like the newest Ronaldo shoes. And you could go up and say, wow, you have really good gear. That must mean you are really good at this game. I'm a bit worried, right? So what you've done there is kind of a lot of things. You've, again, taken something that you've seen and both of y'all are seeing in the world to kind of break the ice, giving them a compliment. You're saying, hey, this thing is really interesting. This thing is cool. It must mean you as a person are good at this sport. That's going to put the person in a situation where they kind of either are going to confirm or deny your thoughts. They're going to be like, oh yeah, like I guess I'm pretty good. Or like, no, not at all. I just like the gear. Either way, now you're into a conversation. So now you're in between the start of the conversation and the actual conversation itself. And it's actually a really crucial part, which is introducing yourself. I know it's something we do every day, but I want to explain why it's so important. Once we know somebody's name, once we've introduced ourselves and then they've introduced themselves, I really think we stop seeing them as like an anonymous stranger. We start seeing them as like, oh, this is a real person. Like, this is somebody who is in my life, who could be my friend. To start that little spark of connection. And now you're into the conversation itself. And this is a part that I know a ton of people dread. Small talk. I personally love small talk. And I think the reason I love it and a lot of people hate it is that a lot of people are doing it incorrectly. Small talk done correctly is just giving you little footholds, right? Little like almost ladder rungs that you can then climb up to get to further connection. And what a lot of people do incorrectly is they jump from like one topic to the other and talk about 5 or 6 different topics, and they go wide with the topics rather than going deep with the topics. But example of small talk done well is when you use these sort of questions. The what, the why, who, where, how, and you dive deep into something. And the second reason, or the second way people go wrong with small talk, is that you need to put out the vibe that you're trying to get back. If you're giving boring or one-word answers, the person is going to feed off that energy and give you boring or one-word answers, unless they're really trying, right? In this dance of conversation, because that's really what I think conversation is, you don't want to be the boring or the dull partner that's holding back the world-class dancer. right? You want to be on the same level, vibing on the same level. And another way that I think you can make small talk go well is to not just ask questions, but also share your feelings and your story a bit more. So even if the person doesn't ask you a question, right? Again, with the weather, if you ask them, hey, how's the weather been? And then you ask them why, and they're like, oh, I like it because I get to plant my flowers or whatever. Then even if they don't ask a question, you could say, oh, me too, because I like to run. Or, I really like the rain because yada. So now you end up making a conversation rather than an interview. I hope that makes sense. So somebody could ask you, hey Isaiah, how's the weather? And then I can reply on this, and this is a good example. Oh, it's going well. I love that it's sunny because that allows me to go on runs, which I really enjoy. Now the person can then build on that and ask, oh, I didn't know you into runs. What got you into runs, right? Or what question? Why do you like running so much? And a similar question, but another way to do it. Where do you run? How do you run so frequently, right? Like you mentioned you run every week or whatever. That's an example of going deep rather than broad. And I hope you can already see how much more interesting the conversation got, because we went from weather, literally blandest, most basic nonsense of small talk, and now we're in deeper territory, right? So now hopefully you're in a stage that you have broken the ice, you started the conversation, you have introduced yourself, and you've gotten the other person's name, and now you're just getting these little footholds, understanding a tiny bit about the person. But now that you've broken the ice with these people, when you're doing the activity, you're going to be a lot more familiar with them, and you should reach out to them in certain ways, like give them an approving nod or a smile or a wave or a high five. These sorts of things that they can just think back on, oh, that Isaiah guy was really nice. After the activity is you want to get the person's contact. There have been too many times, and I'm very frustrated at myself, so I don't want you to feel this, where I have a really nice spark, a really nice conversation with a person. I'm like, wow, that's a really cool person. And then I leave, and then I never see them again. And I'm so pissed at myself. Don't feel that. I don't want you to have that experience. So just make sure you say something as simple as, hey, listen, I gotta go, but let me grab your number or your IG because this was a really nice conversation and I would love to keep having more of these. Even in that conversation, you're letting the person know, okay, this person wants to make friends. And that in itself is a level of connection you all get to start to build. And that takes me to step number 3, the one-on-one, or what I like to call the friend date. So let's pretend you've gone to the event, you've talked to the person, you've gotten their contact. Now it's been a couple days and you're home and you want to see this person again. Let's call this person Samantha. What you're going to do now is position a hangout with Samantha as a casual hangout, right? You don't want to put too much pressure on the person. It's not, hey, I want to go hang out with you right now. You might end up scaring people away. I have scared people away. And you don't want to do that, right? Because that could turn someone who could be an interesting friend or interesting person in your life, and they might just not feel the vibe because that might be a little too much pressure for them. I like to position it as a thing I was going to do anyways. Let's pretend you guys have had a conversation and they mentioned they really want to check out this coffee place nearby or a coffee shop nearby. So this is in the text of the DM you send them. Hey Samantha, this is Isaiah. It was great getting to know you at rock climbing the other day. I am planning to go to that coffee shop we were mentioning. Do you want to come with? That's basically the format that you are going to send that text and then fire away. Something that I got a lot in my journey was I was too afraid to double or triple text. I don't think you should be, and I'll explain why. So one thing that would happen is I might be talking to the person, I send that text that I just mentioned, and you wouldn't really hear back from them. More often than not, what that really means is they probably just didn't see your text. I know for a fact, and maybe I'm just a generationally bad texter, but sometimes I'm just busy and I get a text and I just don't have time to reply to it. or you have an idea of what you want to say, but you don't end up sending it, right? That happens to a ton of people, so don't take it personally if you don't get a reply immediately back. Feel free to send a follow-up, like, hey, just checking in on this. If you still want to go, great. If not, no worries, right? Always position it as, hey, I'm a cool person, I'm a cool guy or gal. I can do with you, I can do without you, but this is just me and I'm inviting you into my life. And assuming the person says yes, this is a pro tip to make sure you actually end up going on that friend date, is to actually hammer down a time. Don't let it continue to be sometime next week or sometime this week. You want to say, okay, great, I am planning to go on Tuesday at 5 p.m. That work with you? And if they're like, no, you can see another time or another day, and but actually make sure you iron out an actual date and time to avoid just both of y'all flaking. All right, so now you've sent your message, you've sent your follow-up, and the person is on the friend date with you, or they've agreed to be on the friend date with you. Now it's to go on that date and have fun. The same sort of nerves, the same sort of feelings of rejection are going to be there as with the group. In fact, for some people, you might feel it more because now it's one-on-one. Now it's, are they going to judge me? What if I don't know what to say? Biggest takeaway from this is one, again, have fun. You're on this walk because it's something you would do on your own and you've just invited this person along. And the second thing is, as much as they might be ranking you or judging you as a friend, you are also doing the same thing. You are on this friend date to find out if you want this person in your life. That's how you should approach it. And when I started thinking about it that way, the weight was lifted off my shoulders because I could now just be me. I could have fun. I could just, joke around and all this sorts of things, because as much as I might want them to like me, the thing that I cared about the most, and the thing you should care about the most, is this somebody who's going to be, a good friend of mine? If I was being myself and joking and relating and making fun or doing whatever it is you like to do, are they going to vibe? Are they going to match the vibe, or are they not? And if they don't match the vibe, that's fine. Every person is different. But then you don't want them as a friend. So that takes a lot of the pressure off of feeling like you need to be perfect or feeling like you don't need to be yourself. And that also includes if you want to be silent, if you don't talk as much. You want to try to be your best self, but you still want to be yourself. I hope that makes sense. Another huge tip for the beginning of the friend date is, I would say, try to break what I call the touch barrier as soon as you can. So when you're with a person, I'm sure you felt this kind of invisible force between you, where you might see the person, and if you don't immediately hug or shake hands or whatever, there's kind of a distance between you all. What I love to do is break that as quick as possible. I offer the hug. I go in for the dap up. I like to do high fives. Of course, it all has to be consensual and respectful touch. Don't get crazy. Only use what I've kind of mentioned just now. But breaking that barrier is super important. Humans are physical creatures. No matter what your love language is, we connect and we relate more to people the more we are in close contact with them, and that includes touch. So go for that hug, go for that high five, all those sorts of things as early as you can, because the earlier you do it, the more connection you're going to feel throughout the day. And now when you're on this friend date, the main thing that you should be trying to do is to have conversation, to try to get to know the person on a deeper level. So we're gonna again go back to some of the small talk things that we were talking about earlier, but now you can take a more personal tweak to it. Now you're asking things like, how was your day? What's your day job like? What's the family like? These sorts of things. And again, not going too wide, but still going deep with those how, why, where, when questions. And then you can kind of sprinkle in some spicy ones, or what I like to call conversational boosters. So you can ask deep conversation questions like, what's something you're really passionate about? Or what's the best trip you've ever been on? Or, what is one of the biggest lessons you've learned recently? Again, I can make a whole video about conversation deepeners or deep conversation topics. So if you're interested in that, again, leave a comment and I'll make sure to do it. These little spikes of conversation, again, help you get to know the person that much more. And something that I think, again, is huge, you're not just asking questions, you're also offering your own story as much as you can. I was listening or seeing some information from this really great author about conversation. His name is Patrick King. He says you should aim to speak around 40 to 35% of the time and let the person talk 60 to 65% of the time. So it's not 100 and 0. You're still talking, you're still giving your story, but you are still listening and getting to know the person. One tool that I really like to use to get the conversation deeper is a conversational card game called We Are Not Really Strangers. So this is just literally a pack of cards. Honestly, calling it a game is a bit of a stretch, but it's a pack of cards with different conversational prompts on them. It goes from levels. So level 1 being like lighter conversations to level 3 being the deeper stuff. So this is level 1. This is like, which reality show are you most likely to binge watch or something like that. Level 2 is something like, what's your mother's name and the most beautiful thing about her? Jeez, that kind of gives me chills. And then the last one, level 3, based on what you learned about me, does my social media accurately reflect who I am, why or why not? Really, really cool stuff. They just give me ideas all the time for just deep conversational spikers all the time. But this is something I love to bring on these friend dates and romantic dates and just play with the person and be like, hey, I have this game. It helps you get to know people. Do you want to play? And we could run a few rounds. By the time you get 3 cards in, you are going to feel so much more connected to that person and you're going to get to know them on such a deep level. And the last big thing, the big tip that I would give for your friend date is to try to seek out different ways to spike the experience of the friend date. And what I mean is just different shared experiences you guys could have that can stand out when you're thinking back to the friend date. For example, if you're on a walk, you could say, hey, I bet I could race you to that tree, right? Or it could be something like having a new experience. Hey, let's try out this new coffee or this new treat at a bakery. Or, making a joke or an inside joke that you guys talk about throughout the day. The list is probably endless, but you just want to have a unique thing that you can then call back to or that stands out in both of your memories. Again, that's going to make you so much more connected. And when it comes to hanging out with you again, it's something that the person could then look back and be like, oh yeah, I did have a good time. Like, oh, I'm remembering having that race or that inside joke. And they're going to be so much more likely to reach back out or to hang out with you in the future. And that takes me to the last little bit for this section, which is to then rinse and repeat. Assuming that you enjoyed your experience, assuming that you want to see and be with this person again, do the same thing. Restart this section, reach out to them. Hey, I'm going to do this thing. Do you want to come with? And then go. One thing that I would recommend, though, and something I've seen a lot of success from, is going to different types of places with the person. Because I think there's something with the human brain. When we see people in different environments, we start feeling so much closer to them. And I could show you an example of the opposite. I'm sure we all have friends from work or friends from school who will perpetually stay in the friends from work or friends from school category and will never escape. And that's because we never think about them as more because we only see them in one specific setting. So the more you can do to break out of that, to take them to different settings, again, the more you're going to feel connected. So once you've repeated that process a few times and gone on a few friend dates with that person to different locations, I'm very confident that you will have made a new friend. And on a bigger note, now you can then repeat all of these steps, starting from step 1, finding that group, and do it all again, right? You could go to the same group, you could go to a different group, and again, make another new friend, and potentially even start cultivating a friend group, a real group of supportive and loving friends who you can have throughout your life. So making new friends may require effort, but it is actually the easiest that it's ever been in human history, at least according to me. And if you want to learn about my thoughts on that, you can check it out here. And if you have started to make that new friend and you are having a tough time balancing the time in being busy and the time in trying to connect with them, you could check out this video right here, which gives you a quick tip on that. I hope you have an incredible day. I wish you the best of luck on your friend making journey, and I hope that you keep connecting.